a goddess who was the bearer of grain and wealth. 16 crore gods and goddesses were born from her womb. But the most beloved of them all was his first child, Haster. But Haster always wanted to have full rights over wealth and crops. By his cunning, he somehow gets possession of the wealth, but whenever he touches the grain, all the other gods and goddesses get angry with him and attack him. Sensing the danger, the goddess hides Haster in her womb, and he is deprived of his right over the grain. The gods finally grant Haster alms only on the condition that Haster will never be worshipped. Thus, the Haster is lost from ancient texts like the Vedas, the Puranas. Then many years passed, and the family of Tumbbad village started worshipping Haster, and after that, another story of curse started. Hello friends, welcome to Filmish English. In 2018, a movie was released titled Tumbbad, directed by Rahi Anil Varve and Anand Gandhi. Although this movie did not show much surprise at the box office, day by day the movie started to take place in people's hearts. Today's story is about Tumbbad. In fact, this story is a side of life story that tells us how dire the consequences of greed can be. A woman of Tumbbad village used to work in the house of a zamindar of that village. It was there that he first saw the statue of Haster and the gold coin in his hand. He craves for the coin but fails after many attempts. The family situation of the woman was not very good. At home he had two sons, Vinayak and Sadasiv, and an old woman who was immortalized by the curse of Haster. This immortality was so terrible that it would have life in the body, but the rest of the life would have to be lived as a rotten body. Where life is only pain, immortality is cursed. The old woman was chained to a room in the house because her condition was not like that of ordinary people. He had to be fed, almost like a demon had to have his nails cut off. It can be estimated that his age is about 200 or 300 years. Whenever the old woman was mad, the only way to make her sleep was the mantra, Soja, Varna, Haster aa jayega. Means, lie down or the Haster will come. Among all this, suddenly one day, it is known that the old landlord has passed away. The woman was very disappointed. His work in that zamindar's house went, as well as the hope of getting gold coins. He decided to leave Tumbbad with the children. He was getting ready to leave Tumbbad, but one day his younger son Sadasiv fell from a tree and fell unconscious due to head injury. His head was covered with blood. Desperate, her mother leaves to take him to the doctor. Vinayak was alone in the house. Apart from everything else, Vinayak had excessive greed and attraction toward forbidden things. He goes to the home of his grandmother, the old woman, to find the treasure, and seeking Vinayak, the old woman becomes mad to get free from the chains. Vinayak tried hard but could not remember that mantra. Meanwhile, the old woman becomes even more insane and smears the blood from her decaying body all over Vinayak's face. Finally, Vinayak remembers and says, Soja, Varna, Haster aa jayega. The old woman fell asleep again. Almost immediately afterwards, Vinayak's mother came home crying and informed that his brother, means her younger son, was no longer alive. They prepared to leave Tumbbad at that moment. The woman cremated the body of her little son by placing a stone on her chest. In fact, only a mother knows the depth of this pain. In Vinayak, greed was more dangerous than feelings. The treasure in the Zamindar's house became more important to him than the pain of losing his brother. Vinayak's mother was shocked by such behavior and made Vinayak promise never to return to Tumbbad in future. But greed has never paid the price of promises. The boat moved forward towards the dark night and the black water of the river. Vinayak and his mother leaves Tumbbad behind. A chapter ends. Then another 15 years passed. As Vinayak grows older, and with him grows the greed gradually cultivated in his mind since childhood. It is that greed that draws Vinayak back to the village of Tumbbad. The second chapter of greed and destruction begins. Vinayak returns to their old home in search of his grandmother. Since his grandmother was immortalized by Haster's curse, he still has hope that her grandmother is still alive. Vinayak's guess proves correct, and he finds his grandmother alive. Although the old woman was alive, the rest of her body was dismembered. The rest of the body was inside the ground. Only the head was above ground. Seeing the old woman, Vinayak was overwhelmed with joy. In fact, that joy was the flame of greed growing inside him. From the grandmother, he learns all the news about the treasure and the way to get it. He promises the old woman that if he finds the treasure, he will give her half of it. The old woman only asks him for release in reply and requests that he cremate her body before leaving. A soul that is only a partaker of pain is easily erased from its mind by its greed for treasure. Liberation becomes his only prayer. Vinayak goes back to the Zamindar's house and follows the old woman's words to the letter and finds a gold mine. His greed is beyond the bounds of the sky. Before returning from Tumbbad, he burns down their old house. The old woman inside the house may have finally been freed. Vinayak returns to Pune. He goes to sell a gold coin to one of his friends named Raghav. Naturally, Raghav was surprised to see the gold coin from Vinayak because Vinayak used to borrow money from Raghav till some time ago. Vinayak hides the truth as Raghav asks. Then begins the time of Vinayak's touching the sky by stepping on the ladder of greed. Vinayak continued to visit Tumbbad, each time bringing back some gold coins and selling them to Raghav. Raghav's doubts are increasing day by day. On the other hand, Raghav was hoping to get an opium license. A gentleman police officer assured him to get the license, but instead demanded a lot of money. As Raghav did not have that amount of money, the desire to get gold coins like Vinayak started building in his mind. One day, Raghav goes to Vinayak's house in his absence and inquires about the gold coin from Vinayak's wife. Vinayak's wife is unable to tell him anything. Meanwhile, Vinayak returns home and, understanding the tone of Raghav's word, throws him out of the home. Doubts began to creep in Vinayak's mind. When nature brings happiness in our life, behind that happiness there is also some sadness. A son was born in Vinayak's house. He was healthy, normal, but had a crippled leg. But none of these can touch Vinayak. Vinayak revels in his luxurious life. On the other hand, the British police officer gives Raghav only 2 days to pay his money, or Raghav's dream will remain a dream. Seeing no other option, Raghav sold his daughter-in-law to Vinayak. Vinayak was addicted to the company of women. Seeing the girl, he could not control his desire. That very night, Vinayak indulges in intercourse with the girl, but some unseen reason forces him to back off. In fact, even if we try to discard all the humanity, some remains. It is that residue that sometimes leaves us unsettled. Raghav climbs the ladder of greed and reaches the palace of Tumbbad. He started looking around for treasure. At the same time, Vinayak was also present there. He follows Raghav from behind. With the intention of showing Raghav that he understood the matter, Vinayak entered a hole inside the well by climbing a rope, and after a while came out with some gold coins. Raghav sees everything from behind and acts accordingly. Inside the cave, he found a stone box with a picture of a goddess painted on it. With great difficulty, he opens the box and finds another hole inside. He climbs the rope into the hole. The place he arrives at, in the middle of the crater, shocks him. Where did he come to? All around is covered with a red coating, and that coating is alive. There is a pulse of life in that at every moment. Raghav had little more left to wonder. Some distance, Raghav saw a little box. After opening it with fear, a doll made of dough come out. As soon as Raghav saw it in his hand, he heard a scream, and in a moment the ineffable curse, Haster, fell upon him. Actually, the area surrounded by red covering was the womb of the goddess, in which the goddess hid Haster. Since Haster was deprived of grain, he was hungry for 10th birds. After a while, Vinayak descends into Devi's womb and finds Raghav's rotten, sore body on one side. Even though it was difficult, Vinayak had nothing to do. He puts Raghav to sleep by chanting that sleeping mantra. Then Vinayak draws a round circle with the dough and stands in that and holds another doll. At the smell of flour, Haster rushes again, but he cannot cross the line of flour around Vinayak. Haster was hungry, but also afraid of grain, so if he crosses the circle, he will be burned. Haster asks Vinayak for a dollop of flour with the folded hands, but Vinayak refuses and indulges in an endless game. Haster gets angry and rips off Raghav's hand, and blood comes out from that. Raghav started writhing in pain. Vinayak gets scared and throws the doll of flour. As soon as Haster took the puppet in his hand and started eating, he pulled open the pouch tied behind Haster, and many gold coins came out. Vinayak collects several coins and prepares to return from the womb of the goddess. Before returning, she cremates Raghav's body just like she did in his grandmother's time. Vinayak climbed out of the womb by climbing the rope and blocked its entrance. Vinayak did not notice when destruction entered in some small way. This is exactly how lust makes us slaves to blindness. We sink deeper and deeper. Another 14 years passed. The year is 1947. India got its desired independence. Vinayak is no longer young today. His hair is matted, his bones are rusted, his body doesn't keep up as it used to. He can no longer climb up and down the rope, so he trains his son at home. Vinayak's son was also just like his father, but slightly different. Greed could not consume him completely. Vinayak goes to Tumbbad with his son to give him on the job training. On the journey, he tells his son all the stories of Devi and Haster. The boy's mind became more interested. He became very excited to put his training to use. Since it's just training, Vinayak doesn't take dough dolls this time. As per the rules, he enters the womb of the goddess with his son and makes a circle with flower. Suddenly, Vinayak's son sees Raghav's body and asks his father. Vinayak avoids talking. Just as Vinayak prepares to train, he suddenly finds his son sneaking a dough doll. Immediately, the roar of Haster is heard and Vinayak becomes alert. Vinayak's son throws the ball of flour and pulls open the pouch behind Haster. He picked up some of the gold coins that fell from there. Quickly, Vinayak came out with his son and blocked the entrance to the womb. Vinayak returns home with his son. After coming from Tumbbad, a change was noticed in Vinayak's son. This is nothing but the tongue of greed. Raghav's daughter-in-law is now Vinayak's protege. He spent most of the day with her. Can people leave their nature even as they grow older? As the saying goes, nature doesn't go away. In between one day, some freedom fighters came to Vinayak's house and informed that the palace of Tumbbad had been taken over by the Indian government. Vinayak gets worried. The palace he had built so far was starting to crumble before his eyes. Vinayak called his son and opened the house chest and showed a bunch of gold coins and a lot of money inside. The son is surprised and thinks that they will spend the rest of their lives in this wealth. Vinayak cries from laughter. Maybe he realized that greed has consumed a large part of his life. He passed the night. In the morning, Vinayak's son tells him about his plan. He said they would take more than one dough doll with them. Every time Haster eats a doll of dough, they will throw another one. This way they can fetch many gold coins at once. Vinayak likes the plan very much. Accordingly, they left again for Tumbbad. But oh God, who knew this journey would be Vinayak's last journey. As per the rules, they fill a sack and take the doll of flour with them. But entering the womb of the goddess, just as Vinayak looked forward with the two dolls in his hands, the sky seemed to collapse on his head. With wide eyes, he saw another Haster is coming out from behind the one Haster in front of him. In the meantime, Vinayak's son took out the rest of the dolls from the sack, and on smelling the dolls, many Hasters came from all around and surrounded them. They cannot touch Vinayak and his son because of the circle of flour. All plans go down the drain. No matter how evil a father is, he can risk his life to protect his child from danger. This time it was no different. Vinayak tied his whole body with dough dolls and comes out of the circle and puts himself in the palm of Haster. While Haster is busy dismembering Vinayak's body, his son may be able to escape. Vinayak's son breaks down in tears, but the responsibility of life is too great, so he prepares to come out of the womb. He climbs the rope and climbs out of the womb, but forgets to close the entrance. Since they had also placed another circle of flour around the entrance, Whenever Haster came out of the entrance, his body was reduced to ashes within moments. Thus, one by one, the entire Haster was exhausted. Vinayak's son came out of the well with great difficulty. Suddenly, he heard someone humming from behind. Turning back, what he saw was nothing short of horror. He saw his father standing behind him. But what happened to his father? The whole body is rotten and melting. The eyeballs are completely white. He has lost the ability to walk properly. A hand came up from the decrepit body towards the boy. He had a bag in his hand, and in it was the ruined seat, the gold coins. Vinayak's son could not bear his father's condition. He threw the burning hurricane in his hand at Vinayak. The flames engulfed Vinayak's entire body. Vinayak finally had to choose the cruel path of liberation. The monstrous monster of lust trapped within a man's body burned to ashes. The boy slowly came out of Zamindar's house. The manuscript of a brutal story was closed forever with the door of the palace. Lust ended. But did people wake up? Maybe woke up, maybe not. This question will remain as long as human society exists. The story of Tumbbad tells us how terrible things can be if man achieves his salvation through greed. We may think once more. We shall have to think.